Well, I'm going to take down a couple of these bigger ones right here. Those are about 25 to 28. Closer to 28 inch. Nice tree. And then this one right here. I'm going to take just one of that cluster there and leave the rest to try to bring things back. That's all beech. Now these are both leaning uphill, but I'm going to try to wedge them into the beech. I really don't care if it tears them up, and then I'll clean that mess up later. I found the guy who's going to buy beech. So once I get these 3 maples out, possibly a couple of more, what I'm going to try to do is put the skidder winch on and come up with about 50 beech trees that are like in the 10-inch to 11-inch at the base range, because I use them for mats, I guess, for cranes. And I think that'll be interesting. But, let me get these 3 trees down if I can. Maybe that one there is a 4th. See, these are heavy leaning uphill, and they always, that always gets me a little bit on the nervous side, because they're going to come back at you. So when you do your escape route, you got to plan on that. You got to plan to have to move laterally versus away from the tree. Instead of running away from what's coming at you, you got to pick an angle where it's going in a way, and when it comes back, you're not in the way of its particular vector. So let me see if I can't get that big saw going again. Broke its, I ought to take both of these too, get it done. Man, I don't like that kind of tree though, headed uphill that way. It's a saw log, definitely a saw log. Both of them have some nice saw logs in them. But for example, if I do this one, my escape route is actually going to be right back where I'm at, 90 degrees to where that tree wants to go. And or straight to the other one, depending on which direction I'm cutting from. But I think 1, 2, 3, 4, and this job is done. I'm not going to take any more. I'm going to leave these young ones. Just leave them right here. Leave that one right there. This series I started was about, do you start with the Chinese aftermarket clone saw, or do you start with an OEM? Both of those are 394, 395 pattern saws. They're similar. The 394 had the older style top end, 2 big giant transfers instead of a quad port like the 395. And I have to tell you, the G395 has pretty much beat my expectation levels. And the reason I put it on here is sometimes I just can't get that one started. I just don't have it in me, but I can get this one started pretty much every time. It's a struggle. I mean, it's a big saw, but I can do it. And combination of that one being relatively stable and that one having a series of issues which have been a pain in my neck, I would say that's a better place to start for me. That one might have more nostalgia, but the bottom line is, as a work saw concept, the G395 has outperformed my hybrid right there. Now that may change, that's where I am right now, but that could very quickly change. And today I'm going to run that thing because I don't feel like horsing the big saws around. I just don't have it in me today. Well, maybe I have to on that one tree up there if I get that far. But the smaller one I have right here behind the tractor, that's definitely the 562 territory. Easier to start. It has just enough power to pull the 28. So much lighter. So much easier to work with. I'll sacrifice speed for that easy to live with saw, in terms of the weight and restarts and stuff like that over these big giant beasts. And that's where I'm at right now. Yeah, I think what it is, the concept is you can have too much of things to where the more of a particular thing that might be beneficial in somebody's world detracts from the saw's usefulness in somebody else's world. In this case, for example, between those two saws, those are what, $350 plus maybe $100 of tweaks and tunes like I did. And this, of course, probably is the same kind of money when it's all said and done, but it has the big bore Hyway pop-up top end. Well, they make similar power. I mean, I guess now that that one's breaking in a little bit, it might make a little more. It's arguable, but not enough more to where I would prefer to run it as compared to that saw right there. And the deciding factor is the fact I can get that one started and it's relatively stable. You know, it's a predictable saw. This one here, sometimes I just simply can't get it started. It's just too big. So the big displacement in this particular situation detracts from the overall usefulness of the saw. So it's just too much. That's where it comes down to. Now maybe if I was 25 years younger version of me could snap that right over, but me at my age, it's just too much. And that's at the limit of what I can deal with right there. And between the two of them, I don't have any fun with that saw. I don't have any fun with that at all. It's just hard. That's the only way I know how to describe it. It's just hard to work with. But I have fun with that. So even though it's a big heavy saw on the same basic pattern, the fun factor brings it back to being useful for me. It's nowhere near as handy as that saw right there, or my 565, which by the way is probably the best, most practical saw. But there's a fun factor that you can't quantify. That saw has it, which is why it sits here in the bucket of this tractor right here. Wait for that one not to start, because I'll go to this one. And if I'm feeling a little bit weak, I'm feeling a little bit sore, that one. So I'm going to set the camera on the bucket, and when you see what I have to do to get this started, you'll understand. I use this saw. This saw is the major contributor on this job. There's no doubt. I want to make it earn its keep, and it has. So there's no doubt that this saw earned its value here. But I just don't have a good starting strategy for it at all. Yeah, too much. Too much. Let's see if we can get down another couple of trees with it. Bound and determined to make it pay for itself. settled back on the wedges. And I honestly don't know if I have enough hinge to hold it, so this is going to be a little sketchy to push it over. So it's going to go one way or the other. We'll find out in a minute. swaying back and forth. There it goes. Now let's go for 3 on this saw. Get that one right there. Get these all trimmed up and see if I can get them out of the woods. Soft maple, but the maple just the same. One thing I can say is that Husqvarna bar and chain, love it. I love that stuff. You know, and if you're watching, paying attention, you can see why. It just goes right through the stuff like butter. Alright, so as much as I'm grousing about the experience on this saw right here, fact is once I get it started, the restarts are pretty good. And I've got a bunch of trees down with it, so it may not be the best, but it's not the worst either. it'll get the job done. A younger man would like it a lot more than me. And I literally have to put my foot on top of the saw in order to get enough rotations at enough speed to fire it off cold. I'm tempted to start it with starting fluid. All right, I think that's enough for me for today. Let me start pulling these logs out if I can. I guess to where I want to end this today is, while I grouse about that saw, and I've had my issues with it. I broke that brake handle. It was a cold day, and it's just brittle. That plastic from China right there is brittle, and that saw is giving me a lot of hassle. The biggest hassle is I just can't turn it over fast enough. That's really me, not it. And once I get it fired, as you can tell, it's been a one-pull starter from that point on, once I get it fired off the first time. I mean, I'm tempted to try it with starter fluid. You know, that's so hard for me to get started. I got to put my foot on top of the saw. Do some gymnastics. I don't know if I caught that on video, but if I saw that or saw somebody else doing that, it'd be pretty funny. Notice we're on a fairly substantial hillside, so I like putting them across the hill if I can. Makes it easier for me to get to them. And plus, I like doing it that way because if I go uphill and they bounce, they're coming straight back. And even though I know that, and I know my escape route is going to be at right angles to that, it's just a lot of tree, and I'm an old man, so you can see what I do is I just put them off to the side like that. Once I got that thing started, actually it's pretty useful. It cuts real fast, real fast. One of the things that is important to me on the saw is I spend a lot of time getting out of the throttle, you know, and then looking at my stump to make sure that I've got my hinge the way I want it. And so you see the saw idling in the stump, and then I come back around and jump on the throttle. It has to have the torque to push that chain, even if it's a little pinched. Otherwise it's just, now I have problems. I have the saw stuck in the tree, you know. And this saw has no problem just going. You know, I go around the tree, come back, gas it a little bit, go around. And on this one here, for example, begin to settle just a little bit. And that thing just had enough torque to just cut its way back out. No problem. And so that's a plus. So the pluses are it's OEM. A 394 is cool. It has a sticker saying 394, even though it has an aftermarket Hyway big bore top end. It's cool that it's 100 cc's. It's cool that it's a pop-up. It's cool that it has just gobs and gobs of torque and decent RPMs because it's a quad port cylinder design, enough transfer area to actually do that. It's really undercarbureted. That thing really needs a bigger carburetor. But the hard thing about that saw is it's heavy and it is so hard to start in the morning for me. Yeah, and I know someone's gonna say, hey, you're leaving a high stump. You know, don't you all that time talk about trying to keep the stump low? Well, look at that. I was able to get that saw right to the dirt on the one side. It's just this is a pretty steep hillside. Much, much steeper than it looks like on camera.